All right, so today I thought we'd do a video on religion and Christianity, why I'm not a Christian, why I'll never be a Christian, why I'm not going to join all the cool kids and convert over to Islam, because apparently that's like the trending thing to do nowadays. And in general, I'm just going to talk a little bit about why I think that all stuff's a scam, religion's a scam. It's all one big distraction from the real reality, the reality which it seems like less and less people remember, but I remember, and so I'm here to tell you that I probably understand a lot more about God, the creator, how to connect with it, how to merge it into your reality more than you. More than you, especially if you're indoctrinated into the traditional styles of how you would form that connection. And so it's a spicy video. I get it. There's a lot of crazy stuff in it, probably. I mean, I don't even know what I'm going to say yet. But in many ways, I think that after this video, you'll probably find some points to it. It's like, oh, yeah, that, like you're probably right. It's like, oh, yeah, because I am right. So here's the thing. Before we dive into this topic, you kind of have to understand that when we're talking about religion, we're sort of talking about so many other things which build up religion that how you feel about religion is essentially your entire profile about how you feel about a bunch of other different things. And notice I'm saying feel there, right? Because largely what determines your connection necessity to view your life from a religious lens is going to be largely determined how you much you fear death. Like that's just basically like the truth. However much you are non-embracive of the unknown and really need that unknown to have a placeholder belief over top of it to format your reality such that you feel, artificially complete will be how much you need a religion. That's basically what I'm saying. Now, I grew up in a small town in the middle of nowhere in the Midwest. And if you're from a small town in the middle of nowhere in the Midwest or have driven through one, you kind of know there's like this haze that's there. It's like, Jesus, Jesus, Jesus. It's like corn, factories, church, Walmart. Like that's just sort of the vibe. It's like a slowness to it. And I think now, even today, maybe I like that slowness. I can appreciate the slowness of it. But I mean, the slowness is definitely there. And I was always a bright kid. I was always a kid that like, oh man, I see the parallel realities. I see the functions which nest other functions, and I can see the art of reality all the time, everywhere, and it's beautiful. Why can't anyone else see it? Oh my God, everyone's stuck in a haze. And so for me growing up, I wasn't really embraced to be able to question reality. It was kind of like something like, oh, you're just, saying stuff. You're just saying crazy stuff. It doesn't even matter. Just believe in Jesus, put your head down, go to work, $15 an hour. That's a good job. Make sure that's dental and like live your life and slowly die. Like, if you're from a small town, you know exactly what I'm talking about. If you escaped one, regardless. So that's like the vibe that I grew up in, that's where I'm from. And so when I was going out there in the world and like really expanding my vision for my reality, expanding my vision for like what's possible for myself, I started to witness that the beliefs that I was slowly being indoctrinated with when I was younger were that of basically false beliefs and were false beliefs that only plugged into you, again, like I said before, in relation to how much you fear the unknown. And so I've always been someone which wants to venture out into the unknown to make at least portions of it knowable so that I can know more of the unknown, to have more unknown to figure out, and just make that my life's purpose or mission. But Christianity and religion, they don't really accept that sort of idea. It's like, no, this is it. This is what it is. Don't question. Have faith. And I remember all the time, like in being in youth groups or Bible camps or whatever, where it's like, oh man, there's certain things which we can't talk about because we don't have the answers. So you just have faith. And I mean, that's fine. I mean, there's many different elements to reality which we'll never know. The observer can't really observe to the fullest extent of reality because we're always going to be the observer. So I mean, okay, there's faith to certain elements of reality. Makes sense. But a lot of questions I had towards this stuff, I mean, they're pretty typical questions that which you could imagine that no pastor could answer. I mean, I started to piece things together like, oh man, like it just seems like this is incomplete in a way. It almost seems like it's not quite like this idea set. If you logically put out there on paper, you write down, okay, Jesus died for me. He died For what reason? Because God sent him down. For what reason? To save my sins from me. But God somehow knows me from beginning to end and everything in between. And so therefore I'm created. How? Because you just write it down on paper, like, all right, here's exactly what you believe, like a little script. And I just kind of came to this conclusion very early on, by the way, like probably 10 years old. Like, I don't believe any of this shit. If this was told to me, I don't even know if I would like even recognize its significance, which almost kind of told me that as it's not true, because surely something that's so true, that's so to the exact point of the ancient realities that I myself, even as a genetic being, would recognize, oh man, like even within my genetics, it tells me it's so true. It's like archetypical. It's of that realm. But that never happened. In fact, I never felt any resonance with these stories at all. Any story from religion. Not to say that they're not even true. I'm not even saying that. I'm just saying the way in which how you would have to connect to God. You have to say this special phrase. You have to say, come into my heart. And okay, you're in my heart now, but like, how did that happen? Like, where's the mechanism of that? Where, like, I don't feel anything. Okay, whatever. I mean, I asked Jesus into my heart like 250 times. Never felt anything happen. Just have faith. It worked, but on the day you die, if like you forget to repent for your last sin, like in the whole queen of all the sins that you've done, but like you forgot that last one, then you may still go to hell because you're unpure. Like the whole motion of it felt like it was constantly inducing me with schizophrenia. It's like, am I safe? Am I not safe? I'm going to hell. I'm not. And like I said before, it just feels like it's something which only works to the degree of how much you need the unknowable to be known to you and placeholder it over with a band-aid so as to not like want to actually process the real mission of your life. That's literally what it is. You can't even tell me anything different. And so growing up, I just really recognized like so many things about this. Again, if you just write it down, don't make sense. That the entirety of it, I started to really recognize like, well, if God made me exactly who I am, and He knew my beginning, He knew my end, He knew my in between, and He knew the in between of the in between, that's like a fractal that continues like till the end of time, really. Where are this separation between my free will, the separation between a moment which is like a God implanted moment, and like a moment which is authentically my moment? Like, where's the split in between that? When can I feel that? When can I not? Is that what intuition is? Is that deja vu moment where we feel like that sensation of this moment is really important for some reason? What are dreams? I started going down the entire rabbit hole of reality, and I started to basically make my entire life like an internal laboratory where I'm constantly trying to observe all of reality, trying to figure out how does this whole reality function? Like, can I even turn it into functions? Can I make things composable, repetitive, understand it, make it an automatic function, just live my life from that standpoint, almost like it's a computer game? The funny thing is that actually started to work. You see, as I moved away from Christianity, as I moved away from this narrative of Jesus going to come save you when, I don't know, he's coming back for some time, I started to witness that when you actually tune into reality, when you tune into God, whatever you want to call it, you'll find that it is everywhere, whatever it is. God is real. There's something to God that even does feel real. But the way in which it was taught to me never felt real. And the only way that I really could feel through it enough was because I never have had this fear of death. I could die today. It really wouldn't matter to me. And I've always known that there's something about the fear of death which keeps people in the type of time loop where they repeat instances of a life in which they don't want and other different characteristics which kind of pull them along these artificial timelines. Our fears are what drive us in our reality. They're the thing that like take us into different dimensions. And I've always had this element to my nature which I can stand any degree of darkness and I can just stand right there and look it head on. And I think that because I've always had that, I didn't really allow like all the possession that happens, even ironically, in those who are Christians. Because as soon as you are encapsulated in that fear, all of us want to find a way to patch it up, to put ourselves together, insert a belief, insert a visual, insert something to like make it go away. I think growing up, I just always felt I was being lied to about everything. And so I figured, well, in order to get to the truth, I have to kind of feel through the lie. And the lie of reality, the lie of the reality that we're sold is so deep that it almost like will rip you to shreds to realize how deep it really goes into every cell of your being. You'll start, I mean, like I said before I started this video, most people don't even know the actual planet that we're on, if you know what I'm saying. And so when you get to this point where you have like slivered through every quality of your being and all of it's been chopped upside down, left, right, and center, you're kind of left empty. You're left like feeling, okay, what do I put inside this? And so Christianity or religion or any of it really feels like a haphazard way of piecing yourself together, which is only a byproduct of not going to the full extent into the unknown. Because once you go into the unknown, I don't know how you can possibly come out the other end and possibly believe these things. It doesn't even make any sense to do. And in fact, if you do choose to believe them, you'll choose to believe them in an empowered way, which makes it deeply relational to you. And you'll probably translate it into more a metaphysical journey of the self awakening, which is what I slowly started to find in my reality. See, I've done psychedelics hundreds of times at this point, and I probably only need to do it 10 times to realize this, but I started to recognize that Christ and your energy field are directly correlated, and they're basically like the same thing. And rising from heaven or your lower states to your higher states into from hell to heaven is basically the process of the body and how you energetically rise up in all the missions and tests that you go through to reach that temple and that dome within your being. I remember all the times that I would be like praying with the kids, and trying to like speak about like God and like, oh, we're like praying. And we're gonna like try to like talk to God and like, hey, I want you to do this, like heal my grandma, like this kind of stuff, or whatever. And I always remembered that as they were talking, I could feel in their voice that they were trying to connect with this thing, which I didn't ever have to talk to, at least through my own voice to connect with. See, I've always tried to talk to God from the stance that it doesn't require me to have like a certain way to talk to it through my voice or through my vocal cords or through like making a mouth noise or even addressing it as a certain string of letters which make up a word that we conveniently understand in English. You see, when you can talk to God like it's in the particles around you within the separation of all matter within yourself, within your entire screen of reality, when you can talk to God on a loop, continuously every second, always informing you about you, you start to actually develop a healthy relationship to yourself, ironically. And this kind of brings me to this concept of the Trinity. You see, if you always believe that something else is outside you and it's the thing that's affecting you or changing you or helping you, like, I got to believe in Jesus, and like Jesus gets the information from God, and then God passes it down to Jesus, and I get it from Jesus. And like you never allow yourself to develop a connection directly from you to God. And what I always realized about this process was it seemed like people were always trying to connect to God, and I just always had it, just repetitive. I could just connect to it right away because, like I said before, when you're able to just access the darkness of yourself and be perfectly okay with not knowing what's even in that space, but being able to hold the space of the unknowable, you ironically will find that there's something there. And that something there is the animation of your being in that moment. It's like the total raw potential of the screen of reality, which is what you are behind your eyes. Where exactly do you really exist? Are you in front of your face, behind your face, to the side, to the left, up, down, in all six directions and in the center? Like, where are you in this weird little simulation that we're in? Where do you go when you dream, when you close your eyes? I've always been extremely imaginative, so I can witness and see all these different realities play out. And I just kind of came to the conclusion when I was younger, I'm in such a rich internal world that I couldn't possibly believe in Jesus because it would have to like basically dumb down my entire potential by like 100x. I would get dumber as a result. And that's what I witnessed with people that I grew up with and kind of see how like where they're at now. Everyone who believes in Christianity, in conservatism for the most part, and religious and all this kind of stuff, They're kind of glued into a type of time loop where they're unable to actually process the real reality. They're kind of just stuck in reaction to life. All this stuff's going bad in California. It's all bad. Oh my God, mass shooting, pure reaction mode. It's almost as if the entire collection of all the available frequencies of reality that they have accessible to them is all in the materialistic realm. There's almost like nothing deeply spiritual about them, nothing deeply transcendental. It's always, Christ is coming and he's going to save me. And like, so I just have to put my head down and work my job and collect my 401k. And like, this life means nothing because I've never been here before. And so I'm just figuring it out. And so, Jesus, if I just believe, it's going to work out. It's crazy, man. I mean, I remember there was periods of time in my life where I was just like dreaming every night, and I'd be going and teleporting to places which I remember were ancient times that I've definitely been before. Places I've even been where I didn't even have a body, where I was just this little orb fixated in this crystal building, observing all the souls collected together. I remember these things like I can choose to remember right now. Remember something which is deeply spiritual and esoteric from the past, which I totally forgot about. Boop. In 5 seconds, I can remember it. You never see Christians talk like this. You never see them talk with a sense of aliveness towards themselves and towards their own being and towards life and the wonder and the miracle of life. It's always believe in Jesus, Christian. They're slow. They're not here. They're not in reality. So it can't be true. If you really connect with the full totality of God, you'll find that it does not care how you address it. It doesn't need you to address it a certain way. All it requires from you is the correct intention and the right template of energy. And if you have that locked within your body in repetition and are pure with it, you will open the gate in the kingdom to the temple within your mind where you access that space and transform into a light being. It will happen. And every other avenue of just believe it's going to happen is to distract you from the time of which you could actually just be doing it right now, but you're not. All the conservatives, all the people on YouTube, all the stars, all the influencers, they pretend like they know what they're talking about, but they don't know. I've watched so many of these videos now, it almost starts to feel like it's disinformation propaganda that they're putting out. Like they're trying to collectively put that haze over the people. Just believe in Christ Jesus, Donald Trump, he's coming back, he's going to save us. They're slow. They're not dynamic. There's nothing expressive about them. They're glued in. It's all about the personal brand. You know, this is why this world, man, it requires something that's beyond religion in a way, which is ironic because if you were to ask me, what is the number one thing which would fix the world right now instantaneously? Ironically, I would probably say, is if we all collectively adopted at least some singular religion which all cohesively merges together and formats us all in the correct way. Like if we all adopted some type of religion to assert ourselves into the world, adopt moral structures, collectively agree upon it, and just move that way and not have any disagreements about it. No more war, just like, all right, we're all in this together. Let's make reality work. Ironically, we would need a religion to do that. What I'm saying is that in the future, whenever that moment happens, it's going to be a religion that isn't tied to any dogma, isn't tied to a specific name. It isn't tied to whatever we think that it has to be or has to have like some historical roots or whatever. It's like the religion's going to look technological in a way. A lot of people are probably going to be like worshiping AI and like going to AI churches and stuff. That's crazy. But you get what I mean. Like we have to be better as a civilization. And so many people are trying to go back into traditional ways of viewing reality when we're not in that time. We're not in the time where that would even work. I mean, you just can't do it. And most importantly, it doesn't feel true. Nothing about Christianity, religion, none of it's even felt true because when you recognize that it's all just talking about in riddles about the metaphysical journey of how to live your life as Jesus has, how you are Jesus, rising up in the world, becoming born again and into the new stratosphere of the crystalline star grid, and your whole reality is all about self reanimation into higher realms of existence so that you can meet God and talk to Him through your own temple, you start to realize that people are in Christian are just traditionalism. It's just like, duh, 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 duh. They think they know. They have no idea. You give them 2 tabs of LSD, 5 grams of mushrooms, and they'd break down. And so, therefore, if you break down so easily just by a couple of substances, surely you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And so, this is the thing that I would prescribe for anyone who's on the edge. You have to break the fear barrier with yourself. Do you really fear your own death? Like, why? To the extent of how much you fear your own death is exactly determined by how much you are choosing not to understand about your reality right now. There's so much to learn about reality right now. Just look outside your screen. Look outside your reality. You'll see. There's always something that reality is informing you about yourself. And so, what is that thing that's getting informed?